Oh, pencil!
This is a worm alert. Beware of the movement known as Pauperganda. The following individuals are wanted for multiple crimes. Fugitive Rogues, LITOFEIT, last seen escaping the planet Pauper. Fugitive Mastermind, Deluxicov, considered extremely dangerous. Citizens with information should contact a W.U.R.M agent immediately. Withholding information is a violation of Phyrexian law. Generous rewards will be given to any citizens with helpful information. Wizards United Rarity Management. We care about you.
What the hell is that?
Cough, I swear that wasn't me. That wasn't me.
Ah, well, the good news is that we can transmit again. Hey, let's strike while the iron's hot.
Oh, I'm sick.
Today's transmission, our new SIMIC deck tech, striking back against W.U.R.M oppression, and we explore your sideboards, all on this episode of...
And we're up. Stronger than ever. Hey, about that alarm I accidentally set off, that wasn't meant to be the
Never mind that. The commoners need all the help they can get before our signal gets interrupted by W.U.R.M. Roll it.
Understood, Cap. Rogue video. Uploading now.
Fellow Spellslingers, welcome to Rogue's Corner. We have been getting transmissions from our commoners out there, messages that you guys want to delve into new deck ideas. We hear ya. We want to talk about them too. This time I'm going to talk about an idea I came up with a few months back that Dee and I have been fine-tuning since. This deck is called SIMIC Advance. It uses free shield spheres and recurrence-generating Dream Stalkers to abuse the evolve mechanic and quickly build one or two heavy hitters while cluttering your ground space with the walls and stalkers for defense. It uses trinket mages to grab extra walls or an artifact land of a needed color, or any of the single mana casting cost toolbox cards in the deck or sideboard as needed. One of our viewers, Eli Grill, has some questions about what we consider when brewing new decks. They included, how fast should it be to keep up with the meta? What tricks do we use to maintain a deck's consistency? And how much interaction in a deck do you shoot for? As far as I'm concerned, brewing is the best part of Magic. To that end, the first thing I like to think about is, what haven't I seen before? What can I do that's new? In this case, it was make at least one of the SIMIC mechanics actually viable in a constructed deck. I don't remember Graft or Evolve making much of a splash in the Pauper community, and I've always really liked the flavor of SIMIC. Graft is interesting, but I couldn't really come up with much. So Evolve is what I focused on. At the time, I was getting crushed often by mono-black control, so I wanted to get a lot of creatures out fast to avoid edict-style effects. And if I did that right, they should pump up my heavy hitters past the most common damage-style removal like Lightning Bolt and Disfigure. So I needed to put out a lot of big creatures fast. But big creatures are expensive. That's where Shield Sphere came in. It's a 0/6 wall for free. At first, I continued down this road and grabbed Ornithopters and Phyrexian Walkers too. That didn't have enough teeth for the deck. Then I realized that the Dream Stalkers would allow me to recast the spheres, which would further trip the evolve mechanic and wipe any counters off the spheres as well. Stalkers have that big butt too. This in a way is my answer to Eli's question about consistency. I really aim for high synergy, so that any parts of the combo work with any other to a 1 + 1 = 3 effect. I try to avoid the hard combos because they're so easy to break, especially for blue. I want to have beneficial effects even if my evolve creatures don't come up. For consistency though, I went for 10 evolve creatures too. The obvious choices for me were Cloudfin Raptor and Shambleshark, so 4 of each of those. The last 2 were kind of up for grabs. The rest of the evolved creatures available in Pauper, except for Crassus and Crocanura, are not usable for this deck. Crassus has Trample, that's viable, but the Croc has Reach, and a bigger butt, thus a better chance to pump the other 2 beaters, so I chose 2 Crocs. If there was any other 1 or 2 casting cost evolved creature, I would have chosen that instead. How fast should a deck be to keep up with the meta? This is a complicated question. I think it depends on how you define fast. The need for common ground in which to discuss this is particularly necessary, since in a deck like Burn, speed is simply defined as the rate at which you deplete your opponent's life total. Yet with a deck such as Teachings, the rate is meaningless. Those piloting that deck want to take control of the game state in a way that builds card advantage and finally board advantage until they have their enemy in a stranglehold and can kill them at their leisure. So let's use this general term. How fast does it implement its strategy? In my opinion, if you're not laying a solid foundation to your strategy by turn 3, and certainly by turn 4, you are likely to be far behind your opponent. I'm guessing here, but I bet about 70% of Pauper games are won by turn 7. If not, the fat lady is about to sing.
Help me, no,
How much interaction do you want in a particular list? I think this ties into consistency. Like I said earlier, I think multiple synergies between your cards are key. I want each card to be able to react with 4 others, and my opponents too. Here's a great example. Recently, D gave me a heads up on a card that might be able to solve an issue Simic Advance has with losing its heavy hitters, Alexi's Cloak. It's a blue and a colorless enchantment with flash that gives a creature its enchanting shroud. Excellent protection for my creatures, also a fantastic multi-counterspell against decks like Izzet Blitz. Here's the original build of Simic Advance. Here is where Deluxikov's version stands as of today, and here is where my version stands as of today. Thanks to all of you for joining me on this first outing of Rogue's Corner.
Yeah, it amazes me we get any messages from the commoners, especially since W.U.R.M has quadrupled their citizen surveillance program.
Incoming. W.U.R.M. Interference override. I can't block it.
The Marilagia. If you are going to drink like a wizard, then you must release the beast.
Marit Lager. Crack the ice and release your beast. Available at all fine Sinclair superstores.
W.U.R.M would like to remind you to drink responsibly.
Wow, that signal was on a completely different frequency.
Is that going to be an issue?
No, we're far enough away, I think. Hey, check this out. I've made some commercials that we can strike back with.
Well, what's that going to do?
It's just another layer. We can hide it, cause more confusion.
Sure, let's see it.
Deluxikov's Wild Mongrel Bubblegum. Blows colored bubbles. Changes colors while you chew. Discard your old brand for something new.
Deluxikov's Wild Mongrel Bubblegum. It's yummy.
Ha! Not bad. Thanks for the props.
You got it. Hey, while we have this extra layer of confusion, let's run another video right now.
Indeed. Let's do it.
Welcome to Sideboards Explored. Here are the cards you should always look to first when building a proper Pauper sideboard. First on our list is Coralnet. Being able to eliminate the worst threat on the board for 1 mana makes this card shine, especially for a color that lacks good removal. Crypt Incursion's ability to eat aggro players' graveyards and gain horrific amounts of life are not to be overlooked. Crypt Rat's capability to kill everything on the board is awesome. Make sure to master the multiple activation tricks to get rid of pesky undying critters in one swoop. Curfew punishes players for going all in on a creature. It's especially good versus Kiln Fiend decks and Hexproof. Curse of Chains can be used as removal in any white or blue decks. Great for isolating threats like Gurmag Angler. Duress goes a long way towards ruining your opponent's game plans on the very first turn. At worst, you get free intel on your opponent's hand strength. Electrickery is one of the best mass removal spells in the game. For years, commoners were forced to brew with cards like Seismic Shudder to combat small armies. Not anymore. Flaring Pain is the only answer outside of a counterspell for some of the most powerful fog effects Pauper has in its arsenal. Ghastly Demise is one of the most efficient removal spells in all of Magic, so long as your opponent isn't of the Swamp Persuasion. Gleeful Sabotage is a flexible card versus artifacts and enchantments, allowing a 2-for-1 removal effect for a small amount of tempo loss. It's a great starting point for dealing with artifacts and enchantments. Gorilla Shaman is hate at its finest. This card obliterates affinity decks. However, never cast this without backup mana. Gutshot is simply amazing. You're able to eliminate the majority of early Pauper threats. This is the card you should be playing with in almost every deck you brew. Hydroblast and Pyroblast are fantastic catch-all options for decks that run enemy colors. Lumathread Field is nasty tech for decks that aim to go wide by playing a lot of little creatures. The majority of mass removal comes in black and red, and aside from early discard, once this sticks, it's impossible for black or red mages to remove it. Martyr of Ashes is often forgotten in red decks and sideboards. While it often doesn't activate for more than 2 or 3 damage, if designed around, this card can be an absolute backbreaker. Moment's Peace often feels like multiple time walk effects on the battlefield. Do not underestimate the power of fog. Okiba Gang Shinobi. This is the card your opponent never wants to see. If left unanswered, it can turn the tide of battle if not dealt with immediately. Prismatic Strands. If you have access to white mana, you should be running this. It can often act as a one-sided Wrath of God. Obviously good versus big red spells like Rolling Thunder or Fling, its ability to flash back makes the power of this card border on being absurd. Rancid Earth's dual nature with regards to its threshold bonus makes your sideboard feel like it has access to 19 cards. Clearly a wonderful card versus Tron and other mana-hungry decks, it's also a great board sweeper for small creatures. Relic of Progentius is a necessary evil in many sideboards and metagames. Remember you can trip this while your own graveyard recursion spells are on the stack. For example, Raven's Crime, buying you a card and saving your own graveyard synergy. Serrated Arrows is especially mean with effects that can return it like Core Skyfishers. This card can really put the brakes on opposing tactics, usually gaining you a 3-for-1 advantage. Shrivel is one of the most feared cards in Pauper. Because it actually doesn't do damage, it's almost impossible to prevent. Be careful when you cast this, however. It's usually best before attacking, as it affects your creatures too. Snuff Out exemplifies sneaky removal in Shines versus Kiln Fiend style decks. It's wonderful for stopping recursion loop combos even when tapped out. Standard Bearer can be gruesome versus decks like Stompy, Elves, Hexproof, etc. The play mistakes and game tempo this card causes are legendary. Stormbound Geist is a superb option for blue mages in both the mirror as well as heavy removal deck matchups. Sylvok Lifestaff is a bastion of hope against damage, brilliant in creature combat. Be careful when playing this as it can really make games go long. Remember to watch your clock. Ferretin Longbow is magnificent for the same reasons Gutshot is, only with the longbow you get to keep doing it. Finally, Wretch Mind is the closest thing Pauper has to the staggering power of Hymn to Turok. So much so that many of our designs, when warranted, include artifact lands just in case we run into this.
Hey, any status update on the worm interference?
It's surprisingly quiet, dude.
Wow. Hey, looks like we got time for a game then.
Man, you bet.
Meet me in the commissary.
Got this new brew to show. You're gonna dig it.
I bet I will.